Welcome. You're listening to Parts and Charts, the IFS and Astrology Podcast. I'm Chelsea Owens, an artist and licensed marriage and family therapist specializing in internal family systems, and one of my spiritual gifts is the ability to balance depth and fun.
And I'm KP Kajabowski, a poet, filmmaker, and astrologer who seeks pathways to fully loving myself and others, and the language for what is happening underneath the surface.
Together, we explore how inner parts and planetary archetypes speak to one another. Whether you're new to IFS or astrology or deep in your own integration practice, we're glad you're here. Okay, well, hello folks. Today is a very special day because we're talking about Cancer. The archetype of Cancer.
Yeah, not the illness, the disease.
Yeah, you know, I always feel like I've started saying Cancerian a lot more.
Yeah.
Because not that I want to just call in Cancer to, I mean, I use like Cancer as a zodiac term way more than I
Right.
use it as like an illness term.
Mm-hmm.
But it is weird when you put it in sentences sometimes, right? And people maybe don't know what you're talking about, or
Yeah.
like they're assuming you're talking about the other one. Yeah.
Yeah,
Like,
the word coming from an ancient translation of a few different languages that means crab or shelled one. I did a lot of research. I
mhm.
didn't
Yeah.
know that the term cancer also meant scarab beetle,
Yeah.
or in a certain
Lobster.
culture, lobster. Mesopotamian astrology calls it the turtle.
Oh yeah.
So it's interesting that they're all shelled animals that have something to do with water. I don't know if scarab beetles actually have anything to do with water, but all the other ones do.
Hmm. Yeah.
Um, yeah, but it comes from the word meaning um, crab. And then
Chilled.
there's also connection to writing as well with the etymology, like parts of that word too.
Ooh,
Anyway, yeah,
we'll get it.
yeah,
Yeah.
I'm really sensitive to that word, especially when I'm talking about my mom.
Ooh.
Like she's a Cancer
Yeah.
zodiac sign, sun.
Right.
Yeah. Okay, so this
So
episode is the first in our series of the zodiac signs. Will be
as
released.
we're in Cancer season right now,
Yeah,
which
since we're in Cancer season.
why? Yeah.
Yeah. So every month we'll be sending out a zodiac themed episode and then connecting it to IFS ideas, but really just like chatting about the archetype, understanding that all of us, every single person, has every single animal maybe has the archetype of each zodiac sign inside of them. Though you may not have placements in that archetype,
Mhm.
um, we all have the same parts in that way. So we're focusing on Cancer. Um, I think this is like one of the probably the most personal zodiac signs between Chelsea and I because you have a really significant placement. You have two significant placements in Cancer, Sun and Mars. And then I have a Cancer moon and Jupiter, and my seventh house is ruled by Cancer, which is like really significant for me as an astrologer, being that the seventh house often talks about your clients or you as the astrologer or like the counselor type of role.
Mm.
So it's like this is a really significant archetype for both of us. So I think we have a lot of experiences that we can share while we're talking through it. But before we dive into conversation, I thought I'd just share like the basics of the archetype. I love that we're starting with Cancer because there's some ancient belief or debate that Cancer is the first sign, not
Ooh.
Aries, which is interesting to me. I'll say first because the zodiac is a wheel. So there really isn't necessarily a starting or ending point because it's a circle.
Yeah.
So you can start anywhere you want. I have not heard of the astrological or zodiacal wheel beginning with Libra or Capricorn. I've
Uh-huh.
only heard Aries or Cancer. So that's something I'm curious about.
Mhm.
But I think there's two reasons why Cancer is talked about as being the first sign. And the first is that I'm going to screen share. There's a little map that is really significant. So I'm going to be really brief about this, but there's like so much to dive deep into. This is called the Thema Mundi for the people who are watching. For the people who are listening, there's a chart up, and it's the wheel chart that most astrologers use to look at like a moment or someone's birth chart. This is the birth chart of the universe, is what it's called, the Thema Mundi. And the
Oh,
birth chart of the universe is a Cancer rising, which makes the rest of the zodiac follow after that. So the first house, where the ascendant is in Cancer, and the moon is in Cancer. So this is the chart where we get a lot of our like ancient wisdom about the significations of the planets connected to the signs. So the moon is in Cancer, the next house is Leo, and the sun is in Leo. The next house is Virgo, and Mercury is in Virgo. And then it goes Libra, Scorpio, Sagittarius, like the order of the zodiac. So this is one of the reasons why it's believed that Cancer is the first sign. In this kind of configuration or understanding of how the world is set up, there's this understanding or this belief that Cancer, the sign, the zodiac sign of Cancer, or the month that the sun is in Cancer every year, that height of summer, is when spirit comes down to the earth to become flesh. And
wow.
I don't have the quotes with me, but there are a lot of writings about what this means or where this comes from. But I'm going to stop sharing. Essentially, it's like the sun is at its highest, longest point, right? Right at the end of Gemini and right at the beginning of Cancer. And then the sun starts to begin to succumb to the dark or begin to go down. The days get more even when we get to Libra. And in Libra season and Aries season, day and night are equal. That's the equinox.
Wow.
So this is the moment where spirit comes down to the earth to become flesh and man. So the Cancer archetype, we can expand from there. It's like the Cancer archetype is like really close to spirit because it's spirit's first moment being in flesh.
Mm.
There's the image of the umbilical cord because spirit just became human or flesh, right? So it's like the baby is still connected, which is definitely informs the Cancerian archetype being like very emotional, very imaginative, like really connected to the land and to their ancestors.
But I would
Another
say
part
then that like Jesus is Cancer.
is
It,
that something?
I don't know. I mean, if isn't that like the idea that like it's a spirit like made flesh?
I mean, maybe we should be writing a paper right now about how Jesus is a cancer.
You
Cancer.
are the Bible
I
scholar.
know. Holy crap. I am no Bible scholar. I don't even know if I have a Bible in my house right now. I might
I
actually.
I mean, well, he is like a Virgo, right? Or I mean, now a Capricorn, but was
Yeah.
originally a Virgo, right? Anyways,
I don't know. I've heard Taurus.
really?
I've heard,
Oh,
yeah, like the end of April, Taurus. I've heard an Aries, like Aries sun. There's a chart. Ooh, should I find it? Should I find it?
no, 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 no,
There's
no.
this really well argued chart that I think makes him a Pisces
Wow,
sun,
that makes sense.
but I think he's a Capricorn rising. I'm gonna put the chart in the show notes because it is a like it's a really interesting. There's a bunch of essays written about it about like why they believe that's true.
Oh,
And it's because of like where he was born or why he was born, like that kind of stuff. And then
wow.
also some of the phrases that he is like quoted saying connect to his birth chart.
Yeah.
Anyway,
Yeah.
Jesus, coming into the chat again. But then yeah, we celebrate Christmas.
But
Like,
really, I think it's also just the essence of like a lot of religious traditions, right? That have some kind of, or maybe not, yeah, just any like avatar that is a stand-in for this idea of
yeah,
divine, right? Like coming down and being among us. So it's not even
yeah,
about the person necessarily, right? But
yeah.
it's this energy.
The word has become flesh. Yeah, I think that the Cancer archetype is often talked about as the crybaby, and that
Yeah.
could be something for sure. But for me, it's more of like the person who's still so tapped in,
Yeah.
um, beyond rational, like the logic we learn through grade school into our adult years. Like they, Cancerian archetypical people have that energy. Like they can access the rational, but they still have this like this hand in the other. Um, and I think the show hand. I think that's like that also supports the idea that Cancer's archetype of the mother, because mothers like are always kind of like trying to figure out what's happening,
Mm-hmm.
right? Like or trying to
Yeah.
like teach the child what should be, but then also being like having a wide open ear to what is or what is happening, because the child before they can speak is using language that we've forgotten as
Mm-hmm.
adults. But Cancerian energy still is tapped into the language that we've forgotten, which can be so many things. Like I'm thinking about like people who work in ancestral magic
Yeah.
or poetry for sure.
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm.
People who like practice body language and handwriting analysis, like that kind of stuff.
Mm. Yeah.
So yeah, Cancer energy. So let's go back to some more technical terms before we get into our interpretations. Cancer, the constellation of Cancer is one of the smaller signs in the sky from our point of view. Maybe not from an alien's point of view, where Virgo is a pretty large constellation from our point of view. That's something that I thought was interesting in my brushing up period this week. Cancer become comes after Gemini and is right before Leo. Cancer is the first water sign if we're starting with the Aries as the beginning of the zodiac. It's our first water sign. So we go from a fire to an earth to an air to a water, which I think is really interesting. So
Yeah.
fire's like spirit or inspiration. Earth is groundedness, material world, and then air is thought, conversation, relationship, social energy, and then water is getting into that intuitive, emotional, imaginative space.
Mm-hmm.
I think it's really interesting that water comes last because imagination, depending on your lifestyle or what you're experiencing in your daily life, imagination may be the fourth thing that you are able to do
Yeah.
after all the other energy, because creativity takes a little bit more time and trust to step into, where other parts of the human life are easier to access without maybe questioning it. So that's just something I've been thinking about.
Mhm.
I feel like you have something to say about that. No, no.
What?
Someone who's a like definitely tapping into your creative spirit often.
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm. Yeah, I do. Um, I don't really know what to say about it other than like that it feels really easy for me. It
Yeah,
feels really natural. It feels like breathing.
yeah,
Yeah. So it doesn't even it's like to even be asked or like to speak about it is like, oh, what do I say about breathing?
yeah.
It's just something I do every day. I don't think about it or like it's something I have to do every day and I just do it, like it's that kind of energy for me.
That feels
But also if
perfect.
I don't do anything creative, um wow, when was the last time I was in that space? I can't even remember. Because it that is like I don't know. So that's like death for me. It's
Yeah,
like my soul is dying if I'm not creating something. Yeah, it's painful to be in that space. Um, so a lot comes through me, yeah.
yeah,
Um, but I must just, I think I'm just so tapped into what what facet of God I am, right? What life force wants to express through me. And I just
Yeah.
let it, I open the little faucet and the light beams come in and creativity comes out. So
I
yeah.
love that the spirit coming into your head and then you touch the top of your chest. That's making me think of Cancer energy also rules the chest.
Yeah.
And
Yeah.
there's some anecdotal astrological information that like people who have lots of placements or energy in their chart tend to have like a strong chest or
Uh,
balanced chest or large chest if we're talking
oh,
about breasts. And I
mm,
don't know how true that is, but when I
do
think
some
about people in my
research.
life, like it looks true in my anecdotal.
Surveys. Yeah.
Yeah. And that's like the heart energy too. We think about Leo as the heart as well, but Cancer is definitely heart energy for sure when it
Yeah.
comes to the water signs.
Yeah.
Um,
Yeah.
all the water signs have a compassionate bent for sure, or an intuitive bent, but
Hmm.
Cancer is like where love is put into action.
Ooh. Uh-huh.
Okay, yeah, so that's important to point out is that Cancer energy is connected to like taking care of people and also being taken care of. And if we're thinking about the shelled being, the crab or the scarab beetle or the turtle, the those beings require a really hard shell or at least a barrier between them and the external world in order to have the soft inner being. The crab has very soft inner being. The turtle has very
Mhm.
soft flesh underneath the shell.
Yeah.
I really don't know much about scarab beetles in real life, but assuming they also have a pretty tender inside. And thinking about how when we're around children or the elderly or people who are vulnerable in any way, when they are supported or surrounded by hard exterior like buildings, like we're thinking about hospitals,
Oh yeah.
have very strong structures, at least the ones that are long term for sure. That allows for the soft tending to be able to happen inside.
Mhm.
We're thinking about the family structure as well. It's like usually when children are growing up or when the elderly are in the home with everyone, there is structure, safety, in order for there to be like true emotional connection. And the stronger the shell, sometimes the stronger the connection, or stronger the shell, sometimes it's harder to make that connection. So that's kind of like the
Mm.
Cancerian quandary is like how much do I or we need to protect ourselves in order to feel true love? And how much are we keeping other people out?
Oof, right?
Yeah, I feel that for sure. Cancer moon, for sure.
I mean, I'm sure a lot of that feels pretty universal to a lot of people, regardless of cancer,
Yeah,
right? But yeah, I wonder if we feel it more or have like just stronger protectors in that way.
that's interesting.
I know.
Yeah, I know. Yeah. Okay, what else about Cancer am I leaving out before we talk about examples?
Hmm.
In my personal life, I feel like Cancer suns are really silly people.
Yeah.
Like so silly and like have their kind of humor tends to be like like on the goofier end where like we're like
Yeah.
throwing in like a random segue and it's so delightful because it's like unexpected. And I think that's like the Cancerian tapping into the imagination like river that goes through all of us. Like it's just like, what about this? Um
Mhm.
it's not as serious. But I do think that Cancerian humor in my personal life. So I'd love to hear people rebut this in their own life, but Cancerian humor is not the kind that punches down.
Uh-huh.
It's like it's respectful, and that's I think why goofy energy is safer because goofy doesn't make fun of anyone but themselves or just the
Yeah.
idea, right? Where I
Yeah.
think other archetypes' sense of humor can be more sarcastic or more
Mm.
I don't want to be too like well this archetype is a bully. Like I don't think that necessarily. I think obviously we nurture our own values and stuff like that. But yeah, what do you think about Cancerian humor?
I mean, I feel like I'm super silly
Yeah, yeah,
and yeah, pretty goofy and always kind of been that way, but I always thought I always like attached it to well, maybe the playfulness I attached to Leo, my Leo placements, because
yeah,
that's just like li little lion cubs wanting to wrestle around on the ground. But I don't know, maybe it's both. Like I think definitely like there's a silliness to Cancer that like I'm always trying to make people laugh. Or just yeah, hold a lightness.
yeah.
Um, and yeah, I think I noticed more with my earth sign people who are like a little bit have a little bit more seriousness to them. I really try to poke at them or like try to get them to like lighten up a little bit.
Yeah, yeah,
And I also notice with well, you know what? I've also been pretty sarcastic, but I think that's mostly because I've hung out with like a lot of uh, males, my, formative years. I feel like I
yeah,
had a lot of guy friends forever, and so I just picked up this like I don't know sarcastic sense of humor to kind of like hang with the boys,
yeah.
And I don't know, yeah, I don't know if that's necessarily related to Cancer, but
Could
probably
be.
not. I don't know. That
What
feels like
I,
something else for me.
yeah, what I love about archetypes is that like there's no definition, right?
Hmm.
The more we become acquainted with them and like making connections with our own living culture versus like 800 years ago, France, right? Like we
Hmm.
can use information that we've learned in books, but it's more the archetype lives in all of us. So then like when I'm thinking about the crabs, like what else about a crab? I can relate to the person in my life who was born when the sun was in Cancer and like maybe they have these qualities that are similar, maybe they don't. Doesn't really matter if it's true or not, as
Yeah.
long as we're using the language or the ideas to like love each other more. Like I this is what I'm always coming back to is like how can we like I read a meme the other day that your life becomes better or your experience is better when you realize that every action from another person is a call for love or an act of love. So like when someone's being mean to you,
Yeah.
it's probably a call for love.
Yeah.
So it's like as long
That's
as these archetype like these the language of these archetypes is helping us love each other or ask for love, we're doing good.
mm-hmm.
So okay, like in this episode I'm trying to define Cancer and I just said like nothing's definable. Yay. So like I think that it's interesting to talk about how like the men in your life and how you're like trying to hang with them like that could be Cancerian as well because Cancer like the crab walks sideways.
Hmm.
So it's like always trying to like
Yeah. It's
come
got
next to someone or come through someone sideways. And that's interesting
yeah. I
thinking.
would just like get myself into trouble sometimes when I'd go too far with
Yeah.
like the jokes or like kind of like teasing. It's I
Yeah.
was like I was such a tease.
Yeah.
Um and like like mostly in group settings, I'm like, oh, I'm gonna make the group laugh because of this thing. And it's like sometimes it would be pointing out like something kind of vulnerable for the person or
Yeah.
like
Oops.
whatever it is. I'm like, oh, like yeah, that I went too
Yeah.
far.
Because you
In
could
service of
probably,
like trying to entertain the group and try to make everybody laugh.
yeah. Yeah. Like mentioning something that was a little too tender. It's like because you're probably sensing it,
Yeah.
but you're not sure what you can tell a joke about or not. Yeah.
Yeah. Right.
Yeah.
Yeah. Yeah.
Yeah. Okay, so we were like, maybe we should talk about Hollywood people who are cancers. And like, yeah, because I think that like the archetypal understanding also helps us when we're looking at people who we've watched on the screen, right? Who may act or have the like energetic imprint or footprint. I don't know what word I want to use, but Meryl Streep, right?
Yeah.
Cancer Sun.
Yeah.
She's a Leo rising, which is Cancer Sun.
Yeah.
Tom Hanks.
Love.
Solange Knowles.
Yeah.
Who else is a Cancer Sun?
Frida.
Frida Kahlo.
Hmm.
Love
Hmm.
her.
Princess Di.
Princess Di. I think she's
Hmm.
a Sagittarius rising, maybe.
Really.
Yeah. Mm-hmm.
Sufjan. Happy birthday, Sufjan yesterday.
While we're
July.
recording, yeah.
Hmm.
I love him. Okay,
Yeah.
so like all of them kind of have this like friendly energy. Well, maybe
Elizabeth Gilbert. My birthday twin.
Love her.
Nelson Mandela.
Love him.
Vin Diesel. I can go on and on.
Who else?
Tom
Ariana
Cruise,
Grande.
actually.
Who?
Tom Cruise.
Oh, right. Yeah.
Selena Gomez.
Hmm.
Who else? There's so many.
Yeah.
LDR, Lana Del Rey.
LDR.
Hmm.
Leader. Oh, yeah.
Yeah, lots of hotties.
Do you want to talk about like the shadow side or like
Oh,
the
I was gonna say something like, the crab is crabby, right? Or
yeah.
like, do you know where the term like crabby comes from? Just from being a crab? Like, but why?
I I have a lot of issue with the moody and
Yeah.
crabby.
Okay.
Um maybe I shouldn't say I have a lot of issue with it. I think that when oh, this is like my just like everyone needs to just listen to each other better because like when someone who is in the Cancerian archetype is moody or crabby, I think it's because like they know they need to tend to themselves and they're not given the space to do that. And that's every single person.
That's true. Yeah.
But then the Cancerian person just may have more access to that information, so they're closer to acting it, right? Where I think other types of people who don't have the Cancerian archetype like at the fore, they might be ignoring their emotional state and like pushing through,
Oh,
or like
true.
focusing more on like the social or the physical side of their life. And they could feel cramped as well in their like in that moment. Like I'm thinking of like vacationing with five friends. Like
Mm-hmm.
we're all tired, right?
Yeah.
We just let's say that we had like a 15-hour travel day. We're all tired. We're all away from home. But it's the Cancerian person who's like really feeling it because they're often really feeling their emotional state,
Uh-huh. Yeah.
right? That's
Yeah.
what I think about that. Um, and that's going back to like I really do believe the Cancerian archetype goes back to imagination and having like a finger on the pulse of the like intuitive stream or the intuitive river.
Hmm.
Um, yeah. I think that's where it comes from. I think also that like if we're thinking about the archetype of crab, yeah, they can snip you and you don't know why. Like you're walking on the beach and you get like like snatched by them and they're like, I didn't do anything, but you were literally you did do something. You walked too close to them, right? It is your fault. I feel very protective of Cancer. Cancer people are very protective people.
Yeah.
I would say that that's true.
Protective of others.
Yeah.
Yeah. I mean themselves too, but um yeah, I think that that what you said about, yeah, not having this space to just, well, being so tapped in to feeling everything and also like not having the space to completely take care of themselves sometimes. Yeah. And I think there's a little, I mean, yeah, we probably use the word codependent. I don't love that word, but like I don't know what else to say, but being so tapped into the collective or other people's emotions.
Yeah.
Um, and if feeling a responsibility for them, right?
Yeah.
Or like to take care of something or the situation, and
Yeah.
kind of like never feeling like you get a break from that, right?
Yeah.
And I think cancers do it to themselves, right? Because you can take a break on the healthier side.
Hmm.
But just that, like, oh, if I don't do it, who else is going to? And just like absolute care for the collective and wanting to make the world better,
Yeah.
and just feeling the weight of that. So then, yeah, we don't get a break, and um, we can burn out for
Yeah.
sure. And,
Yeah,
uh,
that's love in action. So then we're thinking about also Cancer being I'm thinking about Cancer being a cardinal sign. So one of the four signs, Aries, Cancer, Libra, Capricorn, who like go and do things, like they initiate things, they like to just start, right?
yeah.
So Cancer is like love in action, and when they can't just go and do something, it feels like really uncomfortable.
Mm.
So
Ah,
then like burnout is a multi-pronged problem for them because like they need rest,
uh-huh.
right?
Yeah.
But there's the way that their energy pattern works is they don't like they go. Um,
That.
yeah.
Yeah, 100%.
Cancers are, go ahead.
I think it's like around the house. Like the last
Yeah.
couple days, haven't really left the house much, but I've just been like cleaning and like doing a ton of sewing. Like it's like sometimes I can get so domestic.
Yeah.
So yeah, I'm like, okay, I'm baking a cake the same time I'm sewing a dress, the same time I'm cleaning up and doing the dishes,
Yeah.
like repotting a plant. Like I'm doing like 10 different domestic tasks at once, feeling and like loving it, right?
Yeah.
And just making my home beautiful. Um, but yeah, we just don't stop. It's like sitting on the couch and doing nothing or like watching something on TV, like that's not even an option.
Yeah, that makes sense to me. And Cancerian people also being so gifted at care work and like making a home or making a space feel
Yeah.
lovely. Oh, I'm thinking
Yeah.
about my office mate while I was in the MFA program, and she's a Cancer Sun. And like day one, maybe day two, there were plants everywhere. And I didn't decorate that room at all. I was like in and out. I just like kept my books there. Yeah, she had like a couch and a pillow. I'm like, what the fuck? Like this is number one, amazing. Number two, I never would have thought to decorate a
Hmm.
temporary place like this.
Oh,
Like she made a home actively for us. I mean, for herself, but for me as well. Um,
hmm.
yeah, just so gifted at making and giving care.
Yeah, that's so true. Like making a little nest, making a
Yeah.
hearth, like yeah, setting
Yeah,
up wherever you are. That feels yeah,
yeah.
great.
And it absolutely made every part of what like everything we did in that room better.
Hmm.
Like
Yeah.
I
Hmm.
definitely spent more time there.
Totally.
I
Yeah.
learned more because I wanted to be in that room. So it's like
Yeah.
something that I didn't think about for myself.
Yeah.
Even though I have a Cancer moon, but like my home is decorated
Yeah.
really well, but I don't really care for decorating
Yeah.
other places.
Yeah. I think, I mean, as far as having the shell, like being in our own home in our body, like that's one layer.
Yeah,
That probably has to be worked through at some point, right? To be able to let something in
yeah,
and like protect yourself, discern, right? And then let love in um and then whatever else comes up with that, the physical body, right?
yeah,
That's one thing. And then like putting yourself in a shell of a home, feels like another layer. And then, outside of the home, our world home, like that also is another layer. But I definitely can reflect on like my transitions of like being in different homes or different house situations over the last like probably just my adult life really, and
yeah,
how all of this made me feel or like how it influenced, yeah, my psyche or my mood, depending on like if I had housemates and what they were like and how clean the place was or what the aesthetic was. Um,
yeah,
there were definitely times when we would have like when I had three roommates, all guys, but we would have friends over. Like every day there was people in the house, but it was a huge house. So it was like I could go to my room and escape and have Chelsea time, but there was always like joy and like fun and something going on in the common space.
yeah,
Um, and like that was actually a really beautiful time, but I could also retreat and go do my thing. And I've been living alone for the last, I don't know, 7 years. And now I can really just like guard my space a lot more. Like
yeah,
I can control who comes in and out. I can make it beautiful and like clean, or if it's cluttered, like it's my mess. And
yeah,
that really affects my like how I feel, honestly, like how I feel about myself and how I feel about just doing anything. So when I've been in smaller, cramped spaces, that were like, yeah, just not, it just didn't feel expansive. Like that for sure affected how I feel, like how I went about life every day.
yeah,
Really affect my mood. Yeah, for sure. There's a lot going on. So it feels super connected to, yeah,
yeah.
home
But
and
that's wisdom. The wisdom of Cancer is like the more you protect your body and your spaces, the better you can operate in the world. I'm thinking back to the codependency
yeah.
concept, thinking about Cancer as a water sign, the like an intuitive sign, and
Yeah.
how codependency is like a very complex topic and everyone's experience is their own, right?
Yeah.
But part of the codependency experience for me was like being really aware of how another person's emotional state, or yeah, just let's say emotional state, really is a part of my emotional state. And like that awareness made me want to improve their emotional state.
Yeah.
If the, and that could have been the end goal, just that.
Yeah.
But also if their emotional state was improved, mine would be as well, right?
Yeah. Totally.
So that's part of the
Yeah.
codependency energy is like being so tapped into another person that you want to um, maybe enact control over them because of that, which I think is part of the Cancerian archetype as well. And
Totally.
like
There's a lot
when
of
you're not
control.
healthy, what?
Yeah, there's a lot of control
Yeah,
aspects to it, right?
yeah,
Like at the base level, yeah, what you said is like isn't that love? Yeah, don't we
yeah,
want people to like be tapped into what's going on for another person or
yeah,
the collective so that we can make it better for everybody, right? Like
right.
yes, we want that. I think when it gets like into um like I don't know, a little bit more of a difficult energy is when we when parts of us, well, when there's been an experience of trauma, of course, but when parts of us take it, like take in or have a criteria for, um, what someone else is feeling, or parts of us pick up on cues that they interpret as X, Y, and Z, right? So
Yeah,
looking at like what the criteria is for like how is this person feeling and I need to make it better um for, me or whatever. But like I think Cancer for me at least can get into some murky water when we pick up on or interpret other people's emotions or like other people's body. It's not even emotion really. It could be body language or words
yeah,
or just a vibe. And we interpret that as like, oh, something's not right, or like they don't like me, or I need to make this better, or they're suffering,
yeah,
all the things, right? That we can come up with. Or maybe that person is even asking for help, right? Or they're not even asking for anything,
yeah,
but we interpret it as I need to step in, right?
yeah,
So that discernment feels important to make. Yeah, because otherwise we're just kind of always inserting ourselves when maybe we don't have to or it's not necessary. Um, yeah, so I think that's important to point out too.
yeah. This is making me think about the moon.
Yeah.
So, the ruler or the planetary ruler of Cancer is the moon. The moon has, the moon is dependable and it's always changing. So we're thinking about codependency and dependency and how Cancer helps us bond in a natural and satisfying way, emotionally satisfying way. Um, the moon we can trust every 28 days will turn like come back to where it is right now, in the phase it is. But every day the moon is changing. So
Mm-hmm.
it's like honoring that we as people are always changing, our moods are always changing, our experiences are always changing, but there is a constancy as well to all of us.
Mm-hmm.
And that is the energy of the mother or the father or the best friend or the lover. If we can trust that they will always be there for us, whether they're a little bit different or not, right?
Mm-hmm.
So I'm thinking about codependency.
Yeah.
It's like when someone else's mood or emotional state or expectations are changing, there's this like a little bit of fear popping up of like, well, I depended on you to be this for me.
Mm-hmm.
But then like the question should be, why am I depending on them to stay the same?
Mm-hmm.
Like I only have control over my own dependability or my own state, right?
Yeah.
Um, yeah, so I think it's important to just bring up the moon, but it's really interesting for me to think about the moon as it relates to codependency and
Yeah.
who we depend on
Yeah.
in the healthy way, right?
Yeah.
Like I
Yeah.
depend on my grandma to be a sweet person.
Yeah.
That's
Totally.
healthy. Yeah.
Mhm.
Maybe. She doesn't have to be sweet all the time.
What else do you want to say about anything else before we kind of go into more interps?
I think that there's an infinite number of things that we can talk about with Cancer archetype.
Yeah.
Like we could talk about how Jupiter exalts in Cancer, because Jupiter, the planet of luck and society and experience and teaching, thrives when people are being taken care of. Um, there's so much we can talk about with Cancer, but I think that we've talked a lot about like the core energy, so that when we're about to talk about like how to work with the energy when the sun is in Cancer for these like around 30 days, what's something we can contemplate in this season that could help us with our healing or with our understanding of ourselves.
Hmm. Hmm.
I'm really excited to hear more about codependency, or how, like, I want to ask you as a therapist, like how would you advise someone who sees issues with how they bond with someone else, or how they tend to like want to control their state? Like what's something that comes up for you when you hear that kind of dilemma?
Mm. Um, hmm. When, so wait, say it again. So when someone's trying to bond with someone else.
I think here's the way I want to phrase it is like this, let's say a person is concerned with a relationship in their life and they feel like they try to control them a lot, the other person in their life. Um, and they're talking to you about how to have a healthy bond with them, where it's like they can trust them and depend on them, but they're not trying to change that person
Mhm.
in their own way, right? Does that make sense?
Yeah, so like working with controlling parts.
Yeah. Okay. Very clearly put. Controlling, yeah, controlling other
But I
people.
mean that I think that is pretty common that people, I don't know, maybe it's more common with cancer. Maybe not. It feels pretty universal, honestly,
Yeah.
but like yeah, wanting just feeling um frustrated and annoyed when people kind of aren't changing the way they want them to, or doing what you want them to.
Yeah.
Yeah, you can't control people. Even if you just want to help them, even if they're like, yeah, just struggling and they're not, listening to you.
Yeah.
Um, I think it's really difficult. Um, yeah, so I don't want to minimize it, but yeah, it's working with, I guess, like just surrendering to, okay, like this is um something that I can't change. Um, I can step in when I want to, but it makes me think of the concept of non-interference,
Okay.
like more of a metaph like this is like not as therapy, but a little bit more metaphysical, right? Just like remembering what your duty is. Like, what do I have to do right now? What's my purpose?
Yeah.
Um, it's to kind of stay in my own lane, right? And when I need to intervene, I can and I will. But I think for cancers, at least speaking for myself, maybe, I think like I've had to learn that lesson for sure. Like,
Yeah.
what is my lane? What do I need to concern myself with or not? Because I can definitely, in the past, I think I could definitely get pulled into like just friends stuff, like, their drama or their problems and helping them out or having an opinion about it.
Yeah.
Just getting sucked in and, um, at the dis like probably because it's more of a distraction from my own stuff, right? It's like a distraction from my own feelings, life, whatever. So, yeah, I think it's pretty common for folks to come in and kind of just focus on um, what's going on in other people's lives,
Yeah.
right? And maybe I'm sure a lot of that does impact you, right? But um, yeah, I think it's important to like step back and look at when and where you have to intervene or not. And maybe some people would argue like, oh, it's like you have to intervene all the time. Like we want to make this world better and, kind of justify a lot of intervention or, caring. Like, yeah, of course we care. Um, but if we try to solve every battle or get involved in everything, there's just going to be nothing left for us to give. Like we
Right.
can't. We can't. So there has to be some kind of process of, looking at like when am I needed? Is someone asking me for help? Then I will for sure help,
Yeah.
if I can. Um, physically or energetically. So I think a lot of folks just kind of step in without just take charge without being like discerning about am I being asked to step in or um what's this person really needing right now? Um am I just assuming something? Am I assuming that they need my help or am I assuming that they can't do it themselves? Because I think that happens quite often too, assuming that if I don't do this, nobody else will do it, or like they don't know how,
Yeah.
or like you don't even really give the person a chance to figure it out for themselves or a chance to fail at something.
Yeah.
Um, so I think that's pretty common too, right? So giving people the space to like fuck it up or do it right or whatever. Um, but I think Cancer energy can kind of step in and be like, no, like I don't even want you to fail. I'm just
Yeah.
gonna do it for you.
Yeah, because if someone you love fails, you feel that failure too. And
Mm.
it's so uncomfortable. It's one of the
Mhm.
most uncomfortable
Mhm.
feelings for all humans. But then
Mhm.
the cancer wisdom must be that we're human and everyone needs to feel their failures so that they can learn. Like learning is all that we're doing here. It's
Yeah.
making me think of like teach a fellow to fish instead of fishing for them.
Yeah.
Um, yeah, just teach them to fish, and if they don't want to fish, that's fine.
Yeah. Mm.
But I do think that there's like a character arc. We didn't
Mhm.
talk about writing. There's a
Yeah.
character arc with Cancer. It's like you begin, hopefully there's a character arc. You begin wanting to solve everyone's problems, and then you crash and burn, right? Like if your relationships aren't ruined, you're ruined. And then
Mm.
you rise up and you realize, take care of yourself. And if someone wants your help, then, like you said, you'll help them if you
Mhm.
can.
Mhm.
Um, that's the story.
Mhm.
And I think that a lot of people who have cancer placements have that story in some way.
Yeah.
Um, yeah, in the way that their soul needed it to be, right?
Yeah.
Um,
Mhm.
but I want to talk about writing. We before we were recording, I said that there's this possible hill that I might or may not want to die on, which is like such a soft way to say. I feel like the Cancer archetype is the archetype of the narrator or the narrative writer, because spirit came down to be flesh, right?
Mhm.
So when we have these like these story ideas, but it's not until they're inside of a character or the character is acting or living in the story, that the story is exciting to watch or listen to. And
Mhm.
the Cancer energy is like there's this really great capability to get into someone else's persona or experience. That's the empathy of Cancer. So then the Cancer archetype, let's say there's a Cancer writer, a Cancerian writer, they can jump between all of their like 300 characters and have them talk to each other and still know who they are because of that level of empathy for all types of people.
Mhm.
This is like in the healthy expression of Cancer energy, or not. I don't know. Um, and then also I'm thinking about the etymology. I think it's the like graph part of the etymology of crab. And I don't know all the origins of that. I think it's Arabic or something like that. But Cancer, there's a lot of discussion across astrologers that Cancer energy supports like long form writers in that way, which is really interesting to me. That's not to say that novelists have to have the Cancer energy in their chart. They don't.
Mhm.
But I do see in the research I've done certain authors that have a lot of characters. Like it's specifically people who work with a lot of different voices in the
Mhm.
same scene, tend to have Cancer energy. It's interesting to
Interesting.
me.
Yeah. Huh.
Um,
Do you have an example?
no, not one that's coming to
Yeah.
mind. Just, uh-oh.
I'm like, what? I'm trying to think of like a novel that is notorious for having a ton of characters.
Maybe War and Peace.
Ooh,
I don't know. I don't know his chart. Um,
yeah.
Show notes. I'll put them in the show notes. Some examples. Yeah, but then like if we go through all of the zodiac, there's different energetics that lend to empathy for characters, but the Cancer energy is like more flesh bound or more of the emotional state of writing.
Hmm.
Um, there are loads of poets as well that have lots of Cancer energy.
Yeah.
And those poets I've seen have more of a persona element to their writing, where if they're not writing from their own life, they enjoy writing from voices, which is interesting.
Oh,
Yeah,
interesting. That makes sense though.
yeah. Mercury and Aries. Here's some undeveloped research. Mercury and Aries, I thought would be more of like the I or persona kind of writing, and that may be so, but it was like almost always someone who wrote like in a journalistic way.
Hmm.
So they're like gathering details of what they witnessed themselves,
Mm-hmm.
which has a lot to do with the I, the Aryan ram archetype.
Hmm.
But it was surprising. And then Mercury in Capricorn likes to write in a very strange way, which is interesting because Capricorn has this energy of like the isolated one, someone who's observing from the sidelines. And they tend to like break genre a little bit and write strangely. So it's like interesting though. I've been specifically studying Mercury in the zodiac signs this year, and it was Mercury in Cancer that was like so clearly character or persona writing.
Oh, interesting.
Um, I
Where,
will admit I didn't do Mercury in Leo yet, but
mm.
I'm getting there.
Where is your Mercury? I forgot.
Libra.
Oh,
Yeah. Which is
beautiful.
also very persona, but it's more of like conversational or dialogue writing.
Mm. Oh, okay.
This has been a 5 year long research project that I've been
Cool.
doing very sloppily, but I'm looking forward to not telling you when I'll be writing and sending this out, but it's in the works.
Oh,
Could be
that sounds
could be
like
another
a
5 years.
really cool book of just like
Yeah.
writing from the Mercuries.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Mercury and Cancer writers love, and I've been specifically focusing on poets, but
Oh, yeah.
obviously my
So many
research
things.
finds other voices. But yeah, okay. So what's another thing that we can do with the Cancer archetype when we're thinking about our own systems?
Um, good cue. Um, yeah, I'm thinking about like what kinds of parts. We talked quite a bit about like this codependency um dynamic. So, that could probably show up as parts, right? Um, but yeah, thinking about parts that could be related to or show up in some of the dynamics that we talked about with the Cancer archetype. What do you think?
Mm. I think there's something that you mentioned a little bit earlier about there's so much happening in the world that needs care or needs action. Um, and the caution is not like to stretch yourself so thin or to be so overwhelmed with how much there needs to be fixed, right? Like the
Yeah.
word fixing, if we're thinking about everything that's going on politically right now, and our ability as humans to focus on one thing at a time or a couple of things at a time, that's what's coming up for me specifically this Cancer season. It's like I want to care with active love,
Yeah.
um, and I'm overwhelmed by the
Hmm.
choice of like what to focus on.
Hmm.
So it's like how
Mm-hmm.
do I not deny all the other things I care about while taking care of one thing or while supporting one thing, one action? You know what I mean? And not feel guilty or not feel strange or not feel like I'm neglecting something else. And this doesn't have to be politically. This could be in like one's personal life as well. Like
Mm-hmm.
thinking about like the 25 people you love and like one person you haven't connected with recently. You're choosing that person to connect with and you're in the same moment choosing not to connect with someone else.
Mm-hmm.
Then how do you negotiate that? And I don't have answers, but that's Cancer season for me is like knowing that when you're caring for someone or something,
Mm-hmm.
it takes a certain amount of attention and
Mm-hmm.
focus to show them you truly care because when you're looking away and you're talking to someone else, like they know that you're not caring about them. And like they may even feel very strongly that you do not care about them, right? It's not that you're not caring about them, it's that you choose not to care about them.
Mm-hmm.
So balancing that in one's life, balancing attention and care
Mm-hmm.
feels like a very Cancerian dilemma. And then
Mm-hmm.
also put yourself in that equation as well. I feel like summertime is like the time of lots of joy and outside fun, but it's also like the time of injury and getting sunburned and like exhaustion
Yeah.
because of the sun or whatever.
Yeah.
So it's like also a reminder that like you have finite energy, and also when you're injured or you're exhausted, you need to like pull back, tend to yourself before you can tend to others. So it's like kind of an adjacent dilemma that feels similar,
Mm-hmm.
if it's not interpersonal. That's what's coming up for me.
Yeah, definitely. Mm-hmm. Have you noticed crying more since cancer season started?
Honestly, not really, but
Oh,
I
really?
wonder about that. Um, I wonder about that as it relates to my chart. You know what I
Okay.
mean?
Yeah.
Because my the sun is going through my seventh house of relationships. So like even when I was sharing what's coming up about Cancer season for me, it was
Yeah.
interpersonal at first. So that makes sense because the sun is moving through my house of really bonded relationships.
Yeah.
So this is the season of the year where I am considering how to have the healthiest relationships I can,
Yeah.
where crying may be more likely in another house. Like it may be more likely in the fourth, or like your 12th house makes a little bit more sense for crying
Oh,
or
yeah.
emotional release.
Yeah.
Yeah, I don't know.
Mhm.
I have to think about that more.
Yeah. Hmm.
Like, is there a season where I don't cry? Is that Aries season? Is it? I don't
Yeah.
know.
Do you feel like there has to be like an event or like something like notable in order to kind of cry? Like there has to be something
Mm,
um there yeah, there has to be kind of a stimulus. I mean, maybe that's like obvious for everybody. I don't maybe not. I don't know.
I don't know.
Or like yeah, I guess maybe I'll just recognize that in myself. I feel like there has to I've cried a lot more since cancer season started.
Okay.
But it hasn't even been like sad stuff. It was like I was in Yosemite last week and I like just cried when I saw Half Dome, and I've seen it like
Yeah.
multiple times, but I haven't seen it for maybe 3 years. So
Yeah.
I like came over this like pass and I was like and just started weeping like joyfully, just at the beauty of granite. Like and
Yeah.
then I was nostalgic. I was like thinking about all the times I've been to Yosemite and like every person I was there with, and some of them I'm not friends with anymore. And it was a very specific time in my life. Like one birthday, I woke up in Yosemite and I was just like, ah. So, it was like nostalgic cry, which also feels very Cancer for me.
Yeah.
Like just reliving or, remembering the past and
Yeah.
having like those are all good feelings and good emotions and good like memories, but just the nostalgia of just like that, just the fact that it was in the past, like there's like some yearning or ache or
Yeah.
sadness like that it passed already and life is going so fast and not that I want to necessarily go back to that, but I feel like for my Cancer parts, like it sometimes I just look at things from the past or even just thinking about like, oh my God, last month, like nostalgia for last month, like
Yeah.
everything, time passing and just like looking back at good times feels overwhelming with emotion. Um, so I'm noticing that during cancer season for sure.
That's beautiful. And that's like something I didn't
Do that
mention.
too? Does everyone do that?
I think I do that a lot with relationships, which makes sense
Yeah.
because my Cancer moon's in my seventh house. And your Cancer placements are in your 12th house of like 12th house is a lot of things, okay. But it's also like awe,
Mm,
right?
okay.
Like
Cool.
the world is so large and so beautiful and we're all a part of it, like that kind of energy. And it's
Mm,
also the house of depression and like
yeah.
hospitals and
Yeah.
that kind of thing. Like it's a one of those
Totally.
houses that we have a harder time grasping because there's no boundaries. Just like
Oh,
awe. Like awe
right.
has no boundaries.
It's boundaryless. Yeah. Yeah. That's really sweet.
But this is making me think of like one of the number one things about Cancer I didn't talk about yet,
What?
which is memory.
Mm.
And the Cancer archetype is known for having like the best memory
Really?
because it requires like memory and going back to tracking patterns in the past or tracking
Oh,
moments in the past, like photographs of the past, in order to care for other people like with skill. So it's like
interesting.
if we're thinking about people, especially people in my life who have Cancer like dominant energy. I'm thinking about my friend Jenna. Jenna remembers everything. She remembers
Yeah.
like the date I had an interview like 7 months ago. Like that kind of energy. She has a Cancer sun and Venus.
So real. Yeah.
Yeah.
Like even with my clients, like they about to probably helps me be a therapist because
Yes.
your friend, like Bobby, remember? And like 4 years ago, like I remember
Yeah.
like, specifics and like, yeah, in my clients, friend's dog's name, like really random shit.
Yeah.
And it can also kind of maybe on the unhealthier side, like we can remember everyone who like hurt us.
Yeah. That's
Or
part of it.
like I'm laughing, but like, even if it's just like that person looked at me wrong, it can
Yeah.
be like the most petty stuff,
Mhm.
right? Like that person did me dirty that one time 10 years ago, in middle school. But yeah, we remember all of it
Yeah.
for good or for bad.
I think that's like being so tapped into, I keep calling it the stream, but it's like the collective unconscious. Like there's just something that Cancer energy can do where they go and they point their fingers like that. Can you remind me what your Aunt Edna's middle name was? Because I only remember her first name and I even though you mentioned her once, like it's such a Cancerian thing and I don't I've heard some astrologers explain it, but never to my satisfaction, to be honest. Like where does that come from? Because there's other archetypes in the zodiac that don't have such a connection to memory.
Really interesting. I mean,
Yeah.
sometimes I even like downplay it. Like, or I play
Yeah.
down. Like sometimes if someone's like, "What's the name of that thing or that person or that character in that movie?" and I know it, but I'm like, I don't know. Because like sometimes I feel like if I show that I know, like remember everything, I don't know what that is. Must be some part that's like, ooh, I can't show that it'd be like weird if I remembered every single detail of what this person said
Yeah.
or did, or, the text conversation we had a million years ago. Like, so I definitely like keep
That's real.
that to myself. And I'm like, I don't know. Even though like I know.
That's real. I thought this was my Scorpio part, but when someone's telling me a story I've heard someone else tell me, I pretend I don't know every detail because I don't know if I'm like
Yeah.
giving something away that I shouldn't
Ooh.
remember.
Yeah.
That
Mhm.
might be my Scorpio part and my Cancer part
For
working together.
sure. I get
Um,
that. Even,
yeah.
yeah, even when people tell me a story and they've told me it before, about
Yeah.
themselves, I'm still like, oh, and maybe that's just politeness. I don't know what that is. Like if
I don't,
but I never am like, oh, you already told me this. I'm
yeah.
just like, uh-huh, yeah. Or like, yeah, if they think I forgot something, so they're retelling me, I'm like, no, I didn't forget. Like I know.
Yeah.
I
Do
heard
you
this.
do you ever have a moment where someone does tell you something for like the 10th time and then you're like, you don't think I remember this? And like I get sometimes I get angry inside, like, you don't think I'm gonna remember this beautiful story you told me 10 times?
Right.
Like you underestimate me.
Well, even in our attention economy,
Yeah.
use a buzzword. Like, I think a lot of people assume that like people aren't listening because they aren't usually, right? Or
Yeah.
we're multitasking, we're on our phones as you're telling a story,
Yeah.
or you're spacing off as you're telling a story, and like people really aren't listening that well, and then remembering the thing. I
Right.
think, but maybe I shouldn't have such a fatalistic view of our attention, but.
But that's interesting to me because that's like what was coming up for me this season is like if the person's not directly looking at me and like showing me that their attention is on me, I don't feel cared for.
Mhm.
And then like what are the implications of a whole society or culture not giving that like at least some kind of cue that you're giving your full attention?
Yeah,
How many of us feel cared about?
yeah,
And if so few of us feel cared about, like what are the implications of that? Then we like start acting, like I said earlier, like everything is a cry for love or an act of love. Like we start crying for love all the time, and
hmm
often that looks like violence
hmm
or harm or if we're talking about the lightest version of that of like resentment or
yeah, yeah,
whatever it looks like.
yeah,
There's
totally.
an urgency to Cancer energy in this moment, I think, is that when we give our attention, like that's our love.
hmm Yeah, yeah, mm,
And
yeah,
it's interesting to come after Gemini, where Gemini is so skilled at paying attention to so many things at once. And then Cancer,
yeah,
if we're thinking about a really good friend of ours who just had a baby, she literally can do nothing but breastfeed. She
yeah,
can maybe watch TV, but n
yeah,
literally nothing else.
yeah.
That's the Cancer energy of
That's
like you
so much
were,
attention. Yeah,
yeah, like it takes 100% attention to nurture another being
totally. Yeah.
coming from Gemini, who's
Yeah.
like walking around and absorbing as much as they can.
Totally. Yeah.
Yeah.
That's so good. Yeah, so
Yeah.
juicy. Well, yeah, as the, resident Cancerian sun here, any final questions or anything else that you think I need to address?
That you personally need to address. Will you answer for us?
Yeah.
Mm. Okay, so let's talk about stereotypes.
Okay.
Okay,
What's on my
so
list?
are you the mom friend of every friend group? Is that true?
I think
Is
I
that a
used to
stereotype?
be. I think I used to be.
Okay.
Well, maybe that's I was like I said, I was friends with a lot of guys. And I think I would do a little bit of shepherding them or like caring for them. Um, yeah, just making sure the group, like more probably emotionally too, like just checking in on them, like, is that person okay? Are they okay? And like the vibe of the group, kind of monitoring that all the time. But I think I definitely through probably my therapy journey, becoming a therapist, I think I've learned more of the art of discernment, like I was talking about, of like when I need to step in and when I don't.
Yeah.
And I've definitely had other Cancerian friends in my life who insert themselves a lot more, or like it looks like care, like we'll be walking down the street and they'll, see an animal that needs help, or like, I mean, who wouldn't stop, right? But like just a dog barking, right? And they're like, we need to take like what's that dog doing,
Yeah.
where's his owner, he needs to be on a leash, they're like very much more tuned into that, or just like, yeah, helping random people on the street, right?
Yeah.
Even if it's somebody looking for directions, right? Like really kind of, more minor things like that, just
Yeah.
really kind of inserting themselves or tuned in so much to the surroundings that um I don't feel as much of a pull to like do that anymore. Um, or I think there's just much more of a process of like, okay, is this mine to take care of right now? Is it not? Do I have the energy for it?
Yeah.
Yeah. So I think becoming a therapist has helped with that because it's forced me to not give too much of myself so that I yeah, can still maintain a few of my boundaries and my own energy. And I think I'm just much more aware of the dynamic now, whereas before I wasn't. I was just kind of like, ah,
Yeah.
like, get involved in everyone's business, with good intention, but like get way too over involved and over care. And really it was control. Like, and I
Yeah.
think I had to learn that, like, I'm not trying to control the dynamic. I'm not trying to control other people. I can let them be. I can let them do what they want to do. I can let them hang out with whoever they want to hang out with.
Yeah.
None of it is like, and I don't have to take it personally too. Like, it's not an attack on me, or it's not intentionally trying to hurt me in any way.
Yeah.
So really like taking care of myself, my own parts, so that people can be who they are. And now I think I see more of that dynamic, and I'm like, ooh, like I'm much more of like, I don't want to be like that. Or I don't, I see kind of people over mothering
Yeah.
in certain situations. And I'm like, whoa, like take a step back. Like you don't have to do that right now. So maybe there's a little judgment coming from me, like quietly, seeing how it like can affect other people and their parts and their energy levels. Um, because people can really absorb other people's emotions. And I think that's what I'm noticing more and more. Like just, yeah, absorbing of other people's emotional states. And so yeah, I feel a lot more aware of that now, and less need to like have to be everyone's mother. Through just taking care of myself. That was a long answer.
I love it though, because it's like maybe their stereotypes are true, but it's like
Mhm.
that's something like the character arc things. Like we start here and we learn and we grow.
Yeah.
We're not finished, but like we do get over that bridge point and we're more aware.
Yeah. Hmm.
Yeah. Like it's a part of our nature, but now we have more choice.
Yeah. Right.
Yeah.
But yeah, ask me, if I have children someday, like ask me then how
Right.
how that's going for me.
Yeah.
Because that would be an interesting experiment to see
Especially with your
how,
memory.
yeah, well, and how like the caretaking parts, or what all these Cancerian parts, mothering parts kind of step in, and like if something changes, or if they just get like more activated and
Yeah.
a little bit more like fierce protector mode, or anxious. I'm really curious to see what happens. But right now I'm chilling.
Chillin'. Love it. Well, that
Mhm.
was fun. Cancer archetype.
Oh, we love Cancer.
Next month will be the Leo archetype, which you also have a lot of lived experience for. So that'll
Yeah,
be exciting.
can't
Yeah.
wait. Yeah.
Okay. We love
Cool.
you. Have a
We
very
love
good day.
you. Thanks so much. Okay, bye.
Bye. Thank you for joining us for Parts and Charts, the IFS and Astrology Podcast. If something sparked insight or resonated with you, we'd love to hear from you.
No, really, we're here to make friends. Reach out to us. Leave a comment, subscribe, and if you feel called, share this episode with someone you care about. Or if you want to work with us one-on-one and go deeper with this work, check the link in the show notes for how to find us.
Until next time, may all of you feel a part of the family.